Ever wondered what secrets ancient artifacts could whisper? Welcome to Unearthed Secrets, your window into history's hidden stories. Today we'll uncover 6 remarkable artifacts that have survived through centuries. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel and like the video. Tell us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Let's dive in. The amulet that whistled secrets. They found it buried under layers of sand, near the ruins of an ancient workshop once brushed by the desert wind. A small object, no bigger than a coin, yet heavy with meaning, a scarab amulet. It shimmered faintly beneath the archaeologist's brush, its carved lines still sharp after more than 3,000 years. The beetle's curved shell, its tiny legs, its wings folded into eternity, all preserved in stone. To the untrained eye, it was simply beautiful. But to those who understood, it was a whisper from Egypt's deepest past. The scarab beetle, the humble dung beetle, was one of the most sacred symbols in the ancient Egyptian world. It rolled balls of earth across the sands, mirroring the movement of the sun across the sky. To Egyptians, that beetle was divine. They called it Khepri, the god of creation, rebirth, and the dawn. Each morning when the sun rose, Egyptians believed it was Khepri pushing the blazing orb into the heavens, renewing life once more. And so the scarab became a symbol of transformation, a token of life's eternal cycle. The amulet found in the desert that day was carved from glazed steatite, soapstone hardened by fire. Its surface gleamed a soft turquoise, the color of the Nile at dawn. Along its underside, faint hieroglyphs remained, etched by the hand of an artisan long forgotten. Perhaps it carried the name of a noble, perhaps a prayer, or perhaps it was one of the countless charms placed upon a body to protect it on its journey through the afterlife. Whatever it once said, its message was now a secret murmured through sand and time. When the archaeologists held it up to the wind, they noticed something curious. A faint, almost melodic whistle when air passed through a tiny deliberate hole carved into its back. The design was intentional. It was not just decoration, it was function. Could this have been a charm meant to carry a prayer, a sound only the gods could hear? The thought lingered. The ancient Egyptians loved sound, from chants in the temples to the rhythmic beating of sistrums and drums. Sound was sacred. It connected the mortal to the divine. A charm that whistled could have been believed to speak to the gods, to awaken their attention, to call for protection or renewal. When the wind brushed past this scarab, it might have been believed to carry a whisper to Khepri himself. Perhaps it belonged to a priest who carried it at dawn ceremonies, standing before the first light of Ra, the sun god, his voice rising in prayer as he held the amulet to the morning wind. Or perhaps it hung around the neck of a traveler crossing the desert, its faint whistle a reminder that even in silence the gods were near. In ancient Egypt, amulets were more than ornaments. They were power, protection, and memory. They were placed upon the living and the dead alike. Each one had a purpose. The Eye of Horus guarded health, the Ankh ensured life, and the scarab, it promised rebirth. For the Egyptians, death was never an end, it was a transformation, a continuation of the cycle of creation and decay, just as the scarab rolled its sphere across the sands each day. Somewhere in the Valley of the Kings, countless scarabs were sealed in gold-lined coffins. Others were worn by farmers, by children, by queens and soldiers alike. The scarab was the great equalizer, a link between the common and the divine. Every Egyptian, no matter their station, could wear one and feel that the gods saw them. This particular amulet, however, was unique. The subtle craftsmanship, the precise channel cut through its shell, and the strange hollow cavity within, suggested something more, perhaps a special order from a noble, or a ritual object used in temple offerings. Its whistle might have been a secret code, a sound known only to the priests who performed dawn rituals by the banks of the Nile. In those ceremonies they would face east, toward the first light, and blow across sacred objects to call forth divine breath. Ka, the life force. The sound symbolized awakening, life from stillness, the transition from death to day. Could this scarab amulet have been part of that ancient breath ritual, the call that stirred the gods from their slumber each dawn? And yet, when held in a modern hand, the amulet is quiet now. Its whistle is faint, barely audible above the desert wind. The gods it once spoke to have long fallen silent. Temples crumble, priests vanish, the Nile changes course, and still the scarab remains, a survivor of empires, of floods, of shifting sands. For centuries such amulets were scattered across Egypt, found in tombs, buried in temples, clutched in mummified hands. To hold one is to touch a belief that the world was not chaos, but rhythm, that life moved in cycles, guided by divine order. The scarab was a heartbeat of that faith. If one listens closely, perhaps you can still hear the echo of that belief, not in sound, but in silence. The silence of something ancient that does not need to speak to be understood. The amulet is more than an artifact, it's a message from a people who feared nothing more than being forgotten. The archaeologist who discovered it placed it gently into a small glass case, the desert sun glinting off its blue-green sheen. Listen, he he said quietly to a fellow researcher as the wind hissed through the ruins. "Do you hear it?" It was almost nothing, just the faintest breath of air through the tiny hole. But for a moment, both swore they heard something like a whisper. A soft, distant murmur, as if the desert itself was remembering. Maybe it was just the wind. Or maybe, 3,000 years later, the amulet still remembered what it was meant to do. It was, after all, the amulet that whistled secrets. A charm that spoke to the gods, a whisper of creation itself, and a reminder that even the smallest of objects can carry eternity inside them. Long after the temples have turned to dust, and the gods' names are worn smooth by time, the scarab still speaks, softly, patiently, through the desert wind, waiting for someone to listen. When the desert archaeologists packed the scarab amulet for transport, they did so with reverence. Not because of its monetary worth, but because something about it felt alive, as if it carried the pulse of centuries within its carved stone. Wrapped in linen, resting in a small wooden box, it began its second journey. One not across sand and sky, but through time and memory. In the museum lab in Cairo, the amulet lay under sterile light for the first time in millennia. A researcher named Layla adjusted her glasses, brushing a fine layer of desert dust from its surface. Beneath the microscope she could see the glaze, the minute scratches left by an ancient artisan's hand, and even flecks of pigment caught in its grooves. The color, a vivid blue-green, wasn't mere decoration. It was meant to symbolize rebirth, the color of new life sprouting along the Nile's edge after the floodwaters retreated. Layla traced her gloved finger along the small channel through the amulet's back, the strange design that produced that haunting whistle. It wasn't a flaw or a crack, it was crafted with intention. She felt a thrill, the kind of quiet awe that only true mystery evokes. "What were you meant to say?" she whispered. The scarab, of course, didn't answer, but when she gently blew air across its hollow, the faintest hum filled the room, so soft, so high-pitched that it seemed more like an echo in the mind than a real sound. It made her think of the priests. Thousands of years earlier, when dawn first touched the limestone walls of Karnak, men in linen robes would have stood in perfect rows before colossal statues of gods. Incense rose like mist. The first rays of sun lit the temple floor, and someone, perhaps a young acolyte trembling with reverence, would have raised a scarab amulet just like this one. The whistle of wind through the carved shell would have been their cue, a divine breath to wake the world. Layla closed her eyes and imagined that morning, the murmured prayers, the gold light striking the temple's face, the soundless belief that the gods were listening. The scarab's voice would have been the bridge between human and divine, its song carried on the wind to unseen ears. That night she recorded her findings. The amulet, dated to roughly 1450 BCE, showed craftsmanship typical of artisans in Thebes, possibly linked to workshops producing temple offerings for the cult of Ra. The hieroglyphic engraving beneath it was faint but partially legible: "May the dawn rise eternal upon his soul." It wasn't just an offering, it was a resurrection charm, a whisper for rebirth. The phrase lingered in her mind. May the dawn rise eternal. What did it mean to those who believed in it? To live eternally wasn't just to exist, it was to rise again, every day, with the sun, to be like Khepri, rolling the sun's golden orb across the heavens. To the ancient Egyptians, the world was a story that began anew each morning. Every scarab carried that story, each one a promise that light would return. Weeks passed. The amulet became part of an exhibit on the breath of the gods. Visitors came and went, marveling at how such a small object could hold so much history. Yet one evening, as the museum quieted and lights dimmed, a security guard swore he heard something unusual. He described it later as a soft whistle, like a sigh carried on the air conditioning vent. It came from the glass case that held the scarab. The sound lasted no more than a second, maybe two, but it was enough to make him stop in his tracks. He leaned closer, peering through the glass. The amulet sat still, faintly glowing under its display light, its turquoise hue flickering like trapped dawnlight. He laughed nervously, telling himself it was just airflow. But even as he turned away, he could have sworn he heard something else. A word, maybe, though he couldn't place it. Something ancient, low, and filled with longing. It wasn't the first time. Records from the dig mentioned that several team members claimed to have heard faint tones when handling the object. One thought it was tinnitus. Another said it was the wind. Yet the phenomenon followed, from the desert to the lab, to the museum. The scarab, it seemed, refused to stay silent. Layla returned weeks later to check on the exhibit. She stood before the case, smiling at how ordinary it looked. A small, carved stone sitting quietly beneath the glass. Tourists walked past, snapping photos, unaware that it might be the oldest surviving instrument in the world, a relic that could still call across eternity. She thought about how humans have always tried to reach the unseen, through prayer, through song, through art, and maybe she realized that was the scarab's true message. It wasn't about gods, or death, or magic. It was about the endless human desire to be heard, to send a whisper into the universe and hope something answers. As night fell over Cairo, the lights of the museum dimmed again. Outside, the wind picked up, swirling fine dust through the courtyard. The air pressed through an open vent and brushed across the display glass. For the briefest moment, a sound returned, that same haunting whistle, rising like breath from the past. If anyone had been there, they might have heard it and thought it was only the wind. But if they listened closely, they might have heard something else within it, a melody of creation, of dawn, of eternity being reborn once again. In the dark, the scarab amulet rested, silent, eternal, unbroken. It had spoken across millennia, from the workshops of Thebes, to the sands of discovery, to the quiet halls of a modern museum. And even now, its message remained unchanged, that every ending is just another beginning, every silence holds a secret, and every breath carries the sound of creation. The amulet that whistled secrets had done what all great relics do. It survived not just as an artifact, but as an echo, a fragment of memory, still whispering through time. And somewhere in that faint sound, perhaps, the gods still listen. The stone that remembered steps. The valley opens like a sigh between mountains, long, green, and quiet beneath the weight of time. Dawn moves carefully across the ridges of Lombardy, brushing the treetops in light, then slipping down into the valley where the air holds the scent of stone, water, and moss. This is Valcamonica, a place older than history, older than language, perhaps even older than memory itself. And scattered across its slopes, where the wind has carved stories into silence, lie more than 100,000 images etched into the rock, the oldest gallery on earth, drawn by hands that have long since turned to dust. No one knows who the first artist was. Some say a hunter, crouched low beside a river, sharpened his flint, and drew a stag that had escaped his spear. Others imagine a mother tracing the outlines of her child's footprints into the stone, hoping the gods might guide those tiny steps safely through a world of hunger and winter. But whoever began it, something began here, a kind of remembering, a way of keeping time when no words existed, a way for stone to remember steps that would otherwise have vanished. If you were to walk here at dawn, before the tourists, before the buses, before the modern hum of Italy wakes up, you would hear it, the faintest scratch of air through pine needles, the soft echo of your own breath, and beneath it all, an older rhythm, the sound of stone holding its breath, waiting for someone to notice. The carvings stretch across rock faces and boulders, high up and hidden in the folds of the valley. They show hunters with bows, deer with impossibly tall antlers, men dancing in strange spirals, circles filled with dots that might be stars, or maps, or the sun, or something else entirely. There are scenes of plowing and fighting, of herding and worshipping, of lines and symbols whose meanings have slipped through centuries like smoke. Each image seems to move slightly under the changing light, like something alive, and as the sun drifts over the valley, the carvings change expression, hunters become ghosts, deer dissolve into patterns, and circles shine like eyes opening beneath the lichen. Archaeologists have worked here for more than a century, counting, tracing, cataloging. They've named the oldest figures, the cup marks, little depressions pecked into the rock about 10,000 years ago, and the youngest, carved during the Iron Age when the Comuni people made this valley their sacred heart. The Romans came later, found these strange figures staring up from the ground, and thought them the work of gods. They called the valley Communorum Magna Petroglyphica, the great valley of carved stones. They had no other explanation. But long before Rome, before Greece, even before the pyramids rose from the Nile's edge, people were already climbing these hills with stone tools in their hands, carving their stories into the valley's bones. Some of the oldest carvings might date to 8000 BC, the end of the Ice Age, when glaciers still whispered on the northern peaks and the first forests began to crawl back into Europe. Imagine it, small bands of humans, barefoot in the spring mud, carrying flint and fire, following deer herds through melting snow. They find a flat expanse of rock, shining like glass after rain. They stop, and someone, for reasons we can only guess, picks up a sharper stone and begins to carve. Was it art, a ritual, a language we've forgotten? Perhaps all three, perhaps none. But the action itself, that choice to mark, to record, to make something last, was the birth of memory, and memory, once born, does not die easily. In the stillness of the valley, each petroglyph feels alive. When the rain falls, water gathers in the cup marks and glimmers like liquid stars. When the sun sets, long shadows crawl through the carved figures, turning flat shapes into living silhouettes. And at night, under the dim wash of the Milky Way, it's easy to believe these stones are speaking, not in words but in patience, in presence. They have been here longer than anything else, longer than cities, longer than writing, longer than belief. They have watched the world change 1,000 times, and still they wait, remembering footsteps that will never return. Archaeologists think they were carved with stone hammers and chisels, the images slowly pecked into the surface, one tap at a time. Each line took hours, sometimes days, to complete. Some figures were recarved again and again over generations, deepened by children of the original carvers, until the lines became grooves you could trace with your fingers. In that way, these stones hold not one story, but thousands layered together, a conversation between centuries. There's one rock they call Nukwine Rock 1, a massive surface covered in hundreds of carvings, animals, warriors, labyrinths, even what looks like a kind of wheel or cart. Centuries before the invention of the wheel was believed to have reached this part of Europe. Another, Rock 35, shows a strange group of figures holding their arms in a semicircle, as if greeting the sky. Some think it's a ritual, others think it's dance, but whatever it was, the same symbol appears miles away, carved by people who likely never met, as if this valley sent its ideas out into the world, carved into the human mind itself. Scholars have called the valley an open-air library, but that feels too cold, too mechanical. These stones do not record, they breathe. They hold warmth from the day and release it into the night. They taste rain, they crack and grow moss, they fade and yet remain. If you press your ear to one, perhaps you'd hear a low hum, not sound exactly, but something between pulse and memory, a heartbeat that doesn't belong to you. Locals say the valley is haunted, not by ghosts of the dead, but by ghosts of memory. That on certain nights when the mist rolls low and the river swells with melted snow, you can hear footsteps on the rock, as if the ancient carvers have returned to finish their work. Some hikers claim they've seen figures moving in the dawn fog, where no one should be. Shadows bending to carve, lifting invisible tools, vanishing when the sun touches them. It might be imagination, but imagination here feels like part of the air. Every mark has purpose. Even the simplest dot carries a quiet defiance. I was here. I saw. I remembered. Over thousands of years, those marks grew into stories. The hunters became farmers. The farmers became warriors. The warriors became priests. And through it all, they returned to these same rocks, adding, repeating, deepening the script of their world. Then, suddenly, silence. The carving stopped. Maybe the people moved away. Maybe new gods demanded new kinds of worship. Or maybe, in some quiet way, the stones had said enough. When archaeologists rediscovered the site in the early 20th century, the valley was overgrown and forgotten. The local farmers thought the markings were natural, scars of lightning, scratches from glaciers. It took years before anyone realized the scale of what they'd found. Tens of thousands of figures spread over 140 square kilometers, more images than on any single site on Earth. Every hill seemed to hold another secret, and the more they looked, the more the valley revealed. Even now, more carvings are being found each year, under moss, under soil, under centuries of weather. Each new discovery adds another verse to the oldest story humanity has told, the story of itself. And yet, for all we've studied, there is still so much we don't understand. Why these images? Why here, in this valley, hidden in the heart of the Alps? Why so many circles, so many dancers, so many strange hybrid creatures? No one knows. But perhaps knowing isn't the point. Perhaps the meaning was never meant to be fixed, only felt a rhythm meant to move through time like a heartbeat, steady and eternal. As evening falls, the valley cools, and the light fades to amber. The carvings grow soft in the shadows, and the hills begin to hum with the chorus of crickets and stream water. If you stand still long enough, your breath will fall into rhythm with the place. Slow, deep, patient. You begin to sense why they carved. Not for fame, not for gods, but to hold something of themselves against the rush of forgetting. Because memory, even carved in stone, is fragile. It erodes, it vanishes, unless someone looks, and so the valley waits, like a vast mind dreaming beneath the soil, remembering footsteps long gone, waiting for new ones to arrive. The night in Valcamonica is never completely dark. Even when the moon hides behind the mountains, the rocks seem to glow faintly, a soft reflection of centuries that refuse to fade. Mist curls low over the valley floor, wrapping around the stones like an old shawl. Somewhere in the distance, a stream whispers, tracing the same route it has followed since the Ice Age. If you listen closely, it almost sounds like breathing. For thousands of years, this valley has been a mirror, not of faces but of thought. Every generation that came here left something, a symbol, a gesture, a question. Some marks overlap, as if one tribe reached across centuries to shake hands with another. Others stand alone, isolated and strange, the last memory of an idea that no one remembers. At night, the petroglyphs change. The smooth rock catches starlight, and what looked like flat carvings in daylight become living shadows. A hunter lifts his bow again. A deer runs, caught forever mid-leap. Circles spin like slow constellations. The carvings move, not with the body, but with the mind. They draw you into their rhythm, the quiet pulse of old hands and colder nights. There's one carving that locals call the Map of the Heavens. It's a cluster of circles arranged like the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. Some archaeologists believe it was an early attempt to record the sky, a prehistoric calendar scratched into stone. Others think it was something else entirely, a way of aligning the living world with the spirit one. Because in Valcamonica, time doesn't move forward, it folds. Each mark is both ancient and new, each moment part of an endless return. The Kamuni people, the valley's ancient inhabitants, saw no line between the human and the divine. The world was alive. Mountains breathed, rivers carried voices, even the stones had memory. To carve into rock was not to create, but to awaken. Every blow of the hammer was a heartbeat, calling something older into being. When you stand in front of those carvings, you can almost feel it, a pressure behind your ribs, a reminder that memory is not just in the mind, but in the land itself. It's as if the earth remembers every step, every ritual, every loss, and in that remembering, the stones grow warm again. Some researchers notice that many carvings appear on sunlit slopes, aligned perfectly with sunrise on certain days of the year. Solstices, equinoxes, harvest times. The valley might have been a kind of open-air calendar, tracking the movement of light and shadow. To the Kamuni, time wasn't measured in days, but in the way sunlight touched stone. The carvings were their clock, slow, silent, eternal. Others think the stones recorded journeys, not of roads, but of souls. That each figure, each line, mapped a path from life into the next world. The hunters chasing deer might have been following spirits through the afterlife, their arrows guiding the dead through darkness, and the dancers, always spinning in circles, might have been reenacting the return, the endless cycle of birth, death, and memory. The air cools as night deepens. You can feel the valley settle, like a giant creature folding its limbs. The stars come out in layers, first the bright ones, then the faint. Somewhere between them, the carvings on the rocks seem to answer, their patterns reflecting constellations above. It's impossible to tell which came first, the stars or the symbols. Perhaps in this place, they were born together. There's an ancient story whispered by locals, that the valley was once a sea of light, and that the carvings were left by beings who walked between earth and sky. They say these beings taught early humans to remember, to speak through stone, to never forget the sky's shape, and when their work was done, they stepped back into the stars, leaving only the valley and its silence. It's easy to dismiss such tales, but when you stand there under the night sky, it doesn't feel impossible. The air feels different, heavier, charged. Every sound echoes longer than it should. The wind brushes across your face, then seems to stop, as if listening back. And in that moment you understand, these stones are not ruins. They are the memory of memory itself. Centuries after the carving stopped, new people arrived. Farmers, monks, shepherds. They built villages, chapels, and roads, unaware that beneath their feet, an ancient gallery slept. When they found strange markings on the rocks, they carved crosses over them, believing them to be pagan signs. But the stones endured, weathered, waiting. Like the valley, they refused to forget. Today, Valcamonica is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, protected, mapped, photographed. But photographs can't capture the silence. They can't hold the temperature of dawn or the way the carvings shimmer under moonlight. You have to be there, to walk, to breathe, to listen, to feel the faint pull of time through stone. The valley doesn't shout, it hums, and that hum is older than any word we know. It seeps into you, soft and slow, until you begin to realize something quietly extraordinary. That remembering is not something humans do to the world. It's something the world does to us. As dawn returns, the carvings fade back into stillness. The first birds call, the mist lifts, the valley exhales, and the stones, for another day, go back to sleep. But if you listen carefully, you can still hear them. The echo of steps carved into rock, the rhythm of hands against time. The valley remembers, and somewhere perhaps, so do we. The pendant that measured stars. The pendant rests quietly beneath the sand, as it has for thousands of years, waiting for the hands that will uncover it, the eyes that will behold its golden surface glinting in the sun, as if it still remembers the light of a civilization long past. Its shape is simple, yet elegant, a perfect circle of gold, engraved with tiny symbols and minute etchings that seem almost too precise for human hands. It is called the star pendant, and it is said to have been crafted to mirror the heavens themselves, a miniature cosmos captured in gold. Imagine, if you will, the bustling streets of ancient Egypt, the Nile winding gently through the land like a silver ribbon reflecting the sky. Priests and astronomers walk with purpose along the riverbanks, their eyes lifted to the stars as they chart the heavens, noting the rising of Sirius, the shifting of Orion's belt, the delicate passage of planets across the dark canvas of night. The pendant was more than a jewel, it was a tool, a symbol, a guide. It was crafted for someone who sought to understand the universe, someone who wished to trace the patterns of the sky and bring them down to the human scale. Every line and groove in the pendant has a purpose, though that purpose has been largely lost to time. Perhaps it marked the lunar cycles, guiding farmers when to plant and harvest along the fertile banks of the Nile. Perhaps it measured the stars themselves, helping priests to predict seasons and festivals, aligning earthly rituals with celestial rhythm. Its gold surface captures the light in a way that feels alive. In the darkness it reflects a faint shimmer, a reminder of the distant sun and the countless stars above. When the pendant was first forged, the hammering of gold was a sacred act. The craftsman, working by candlelight or oil lamp, would have bent the metal with patience and reverence, folding the essence of the sky into its surface. Each strike of the hammer was deliberate, precise, almost like a heartbeat, echoing the rhythm of the cosmos it sought to replicate. It was not merely a piece of jewelry, nor a talisman of wealth. It was a bridge between human life and the vast, uncharted heavens. Imagine now the hands that first held it. Perhaps they belonged to a young priest, trained in the observatory temples along the Nile. Perhaps to a royal scholar, one whose mind was steeped in the teachings of Thoth, the god of wisdom, whose knowledge of mathematics and astronomy shaped the rhythms of the land. Or perhaps it belonged to a quiet observer, someone whose nights were spent under the open sky, tracing the paths of stars and planets with a sense of awe that words cannot capture. The pendant was small, yet in its size contained worlds. Tiny etchings form patterns, dots that might represent stars, arcs that might signify the passage of the moon, concentric circles that echo the spiraling motion of celestial bodies. To hold it is to feel the weight of the universe distilled into gold, an intimate connection between mortal hands and infinite space. It is a reminder that even in the smallest of objects, the vastness of creation can be reflected. In the quiet of the tomb where it lay, the pendant slept alongside its owner, protected from the harsh sun and the shifting sands of centuries. The chamber was dark, silent except for the faint whisper of wind through cracks in stone, the occasional settling of earth. Here, in this stillness, the pendant continued its silent vigil, preserving the memory of those who once gazed at the stars with reverence and wonder. Each line etched into its surface told a story of devotion, curiosity, and the human desire to reach beyond the earth. Archaeologists who uncovered it centuries later marveled at its craftsmanship. They saw in its simple elegance the work of someone who understood not just gold, but light, shadow, and proportion. They held it, measured it, documented it, but could only guess at the full meaning behind its design. The symbols are enigmatic, echoing the silent language of the stars themselves. Perhaps they marked festivals long forgotten, or perhaps they were personal reminders of nights spent watching Orion climb the sky. The true story remains hidden, leaving only a faint, tantalizing trace for those who seek it. Close your eyes and picture the night sky over ancient Egypt. The desert stretches beyond the Nile, quiet and infinite. The stars shimmer, constant yet ever-changing. The young priest, the scholar, the observer, whichever hand it belonged to, holds the pendant to catch the light, and suddenly the heavens feel within reach. It is as if the universe itself has been folded into gold, small enough to cradle yet vast enough to inspire awe. The pendant is more than an artifact, it is a bridge across time. To study it is to step into the mind of someone from a world long gone, to feel the same awe they must have felt as they watched the nightly dance of planets and stars. It reminds us that the human desire to understand, to measure, and to connect with the cosmos is eternal. Each generation that comes across the pendant becomes part of its story, adding a layer of observation and reflection, a new whisper in a dialogue that spans millennia. Even now, under modern lights and in museum display cases, the pendant retains a quiet magic. It gleams differently depending on the angle of observation, catching a reflection here, a shadow there, as if continuing its celestial measurement. Scholars still debate the precise meaning of the etchings, and the pendant continues to inspire, to puzzle, to whisper its secrets to those who pause long enough to notice. And there is a silence to it, a calm, a stillness that almost feels alive. The pendant, though small, holds the weight of time, the echo of countless nights spent beneath the stars, the devotion of those who sought to translate the infinite into something human, something tangible. To hold it is to touch both eternity and intimacy simultaneously, to feel the patient pulse of the universe through a crafted circle of gold. Think of the rivers that flow past the ancient temples, the sands that shift with the wind, the stars that trace the sky year after year. Each element is connected through the pendant, as if it were a point of quiet convergence. In its simplicity, there is complexity. In its gold, there is history. In its stillness, there is life. The pendant speaks in a language beyond words, a language of light, geometry, and time. To listen is to slow down, to feel the rhythm of the universe in your own heartbeat, to acknowledge that even in silence, knowledge endures. Every glance, every careful study, every moment spent contemplating it is part of a long chain of human curiosity stretching back to the hands that first forged it. Over the centuries, civilizations rose and fell, kings ruled and were forgotten, temples crumbled, and sands reclaimed the land. Yet the pendant remained, a silent witness to the endless passage of time, untouched by conquest, unbroken by age. It holds stories not only of the stars, but of the people who reached for them, who measured, who hoped, who believed. And now, in your imagination, you can hold it too. You can feel its weight, smooth yet deliberate, cool against your skin. You can imagine tracing the etchings with your fingertips, following the ancient patterns, and feeling a connection across time and space. The stars it measured long ago are still there, the same as they were when the pendant was first born. And for a moment, you are part of that continuum, part of a quiet human story reaching across millennia. The night deepens, and the pendant seems to glow faintly, reflecting a hidden light, the memory of countless observations, the legacy of human wonder. It is a reminder that knowledge, curiosity, and devotion leave traces, small and golden, capable of surviving the harshest tests of time. To gaze upon it is to be reminded that even the smallest object can hold the universe, that even a single handcrafted pendant can carry the weight of stars. And so the Egyptian gold star pendant rests, eternal in its quiet, unassuming brilliance, a testament to the human spirit, a relic of awe and reverence, a silent bridge between the earthbound and the infinite, between the hands that first held it and the minds that seek to understand it now. Long after the pendant was crafted, the night sky remained unchanged, endless and constant, yet always shifting in subtle ways, a rhythm that only careful observation could reveal. Imagine the priests and astronomers of ancient Egypt lifting their eyes to the heavens, pendant in hand, tracing the path of stars and planets, measuring the months, noting the solstices, marking the rising of Sirius that heralded the annual flooding of the Nile. In those quiet, sacred moments, the pendant was more than gold. It was a guide, a silent companion in the dialogue between earth and sky. It may have been passed down through generations, each new owner learning to interpret its subtle markings, to feel the gentle pull of celestial cycles reflected in its curves and lines. Perhaps a young apprentice, fascinated by the glimmering constellations, held it close at night, imagining the vast heavens compressed into that small circle of gold. The etchings captured not only the stars but the human longing to understand them, to bring order and meaning to the infinite above. Even as centuries passed and the world changed around it, the pendant remained, quietly observing the rise and fall of empires, the building and crumbling of temples, the endless ebb and flow of human life. Buried and rediscovered, handled with reverence, studied in silence, it connects the ancient to the present, reminding us that curiosity, wonder, and reverence for the cosmos are timeless. Now, even as you imagine it in your own hands, feeling the weight of gold and the coolness of eternity, you are part of its story. Its history is not only written in hieroglyphs or buried in sand, but carried forward by each mind that marvels at its existence. And in this quiet reflection, you too trace the path of the stars, letting the pendant's silent wisdom guide you to a moment of calm understanding, a connection to a world long past yet vividly alive in memory and imagination. The helmet that heard the war songs. The helmet lay beneath the soil for centuries, buried in the quiet earth of Tintignac, as if the land itself had decided to guard it from the passage of time. Bronze glimmered faintly beneath layers of clay and dust, faint traces of green patina hinting at the life it had once known, the hands that had shaped it, and the warriors who had worn it as they marched across fields that would long ago be swallowed by history. Its form is elegant yet practical, designed to protect and to impress, to shield the wearer while signaling status and strength. It is heavy in the hand yet perfectly balanced, a testament to the skill of the Gallic smiths who labored over its creation with precision and care. Imagine the rolling hills and dense forests of ancient Gaul, where tribes moved with quiet purpose, their lives intertwined with the land, its rivers, and the sounds of the wind rustling through trees. The helmet would have been worn in moments of ceremony and of war, on days when the sun rose over the misted fields, painting the world in soft golden light, and on nights when warriors gathered around fires, their songs rising to the stars, carrying tales of courage, honor, and fear. The helmet listened, in its silent bronze way, to these war songs, absorbing them into its very form, capturing echoes that would survive long after the voices themselves had faded. Crafting a helmet like this was no simple task. Bronze had to be heated and hammered with care, every curve carefully shaped to follow the contours of the human head, every ridge placed to strengthen without weighing down the wearer. Decorative motifs, etched and molded into the surface, conveyed symbolism, tribal identity, and perhaps the personal story of the warrior destined to wear it. Each line and swirl held meaning that is difficult for modern eyes to fully grasp. Yet through them, one can sense a connection to rituals, beliefs, and the pride of a culture fiercely protective of its warriors and its land. The helmet did more than protect, it inspired. On the battlefield, it would have caught the sunlight, gleaming bronze signaling presence and authority. It was both tool and symbol, a mark of distinction, and a silent companion in moments of fear, courage, and triumph. Warriors would have worn it in silence, listening to the distant sounds of approaching enemies, the distant neighing of horses, the murmur of allied tribes, and the wind over the open plains. Every scratch, dent, and imperfection tells a story, each one a fragment of life in a world that knew both the violence and the beauty of human existence. In the quiet moments before combat, The wearer of the helmet may have lifted their eyes to the horizon, perhaps whispering a prayer to the gods for protection, guidance, and strength. In that instant, the helmet was more than bronze. It was an extension of the self, a repository of courage, a holder of memories and intent. It heard the rapid beating of the heart, the quiet exhalations of breath, and the whispered encouragements from comrades. It was part of the rhythm of life itself, a rhythm that the helmet would carry silently for centuries. The world changed, tribes merged, territories shifted, and battles were fought and forgotten. Yet the helmet remained, a quiet witness to the ebb and flow of history, buried beneath the earth. It waited for those who would one day unearth it, revealing the artistry, strength, and silent stories it held. When archaeologists finally uncovered it in Tintignac, they marveled not only at its craftsmanship but at the life it seemed to have lived, the echoes of chants and cries it seemed to carry. It is as if the bronze itself remembered, holding in its form a record of courage and song, of rituals and human connection to both earth and spirit. Visualize the hands that first shaped the bronze. Perhaps the smith worked by the flickering light of a fire, the heat of molten metal reflected in their eyes, the rhythmic hammering a meditation, a song of creation. Each strike of the hammer was deliberate, calculated, and imbued with intention. In those moments the helmet was alive, taking shape as an object of power, an object of protection, an object destined to witness human bravery and fear. Every curve was guided by both function and artistry, ensuring it would endure, shield, and inspire, standing as a testament to both craft and courage. The helmet's journey did not end with the battlefield. It may have been placed in a sacred context, offered to the gods, or stored as a cherished relic of victories past. Perhaps it rested in the halls of leaders, passed down from one generation to the next, teaching young warriors the meaning of honor and the weight of responsibility. Its presence alone commanded respect, a silent lesson etched in bronze. And even in its silence, it communicated something profound, the human need to protect, to honor, and to remember. Imagine holding it now, in your mind's eye. Feel the cool, smooth metal, the subtle weight, the faint green patina that tells of centuries underground. Trace the ridges and etchings with your imagination, understanding that each mark, each dent, is a story, a fragment of life, courage, and memory. The helmet is more than a relic. It is a bridge to the past, a connection to people who lived, loved, fought, and dreamed long before our time. Think of the songs it heard. Perhaps they were not only songs of war, but of celebration, of mourning, of everyday life. The helmet was a silent listener, capturing human emotion in its still, solid form. It understood rhythm and resonance, the rise and fall of voices, the shared unity of a tribe moving together, synchronized in purpose and intent. In some ways, it became a vessel of memory, preserving moments that would otherwise be lost to time. Even as centuries passed, the earth around it shifted, and rivers changed course. The helmet endured. Its story was waiting for discovery, a testament to resilience and the quiet persistence of human creation. When finally lifted from the soil, it revealed not just a piece of armor, but a repository of culture, artistry, and human experience. Each curve, ridge, and dent echoed the songs and rituals it had witnessed, offering a tangible link to the lives of those who walked the hills of Tintignac so long ago. Consider the eyes of the modern observer, gazing upon the helmet in awe, perhaps imagining the life it once knew. The stories embedded in bronze are accessible not only through study, but through imagination. Close your eyes and picture the warrior placing it upon their head, feeling the cool metal against their skin, hearing the faint echo of drums and chants, sensing the collective heartbeat of their tribe. The helmet was both shield and companion, silently guiding, silently observing, silently teaching. Its legacy continues. In museums and exhibitions, it inspires wonder, curiosity, and reflection. Scholars analyze it, reconstructing its origins, purpose, and symbolism. Yet even they cannot fully capture the essence of the lives it touched, the songs it heard, or the fears it absorbed. Its value lies not only in bronze and craftsmanship, but in the invisible threads of human experience woven into its very being. Imagine, finally, the landscape of Tintignac itself, rolling hills, the wind whispering through the trees, the faint murmur of rivers, the subtle movement of animals and humans alike. And beneath it all, the helmet rests, carrying within it the echoes of countless voices, the rhythm of human courage, the silent pulse of memory. It is an artifact that teaches patience, observation, reverence, and wonder. A quiet reminder that history is not just learned but felt, not only studied but experienced, one heartbeat at a time. And as you picture it, feel a sense of calm. The helmet has survived centuries, wars, and the passage of time, standing as a sentinel of human experience, a silent teacher of bravery and song. Its story is both ancient and timeless, a bridge from the hearts of warriors long gone to the minds of those who marvel at its beauty today. In its stillness, there is life. In its silence, there is story. In its bronze, there is humanity. Even after its removal from the earth, the helmet continued to tell its story, not in words, but through the echoes of the past it carried within its bronze frame. Imagine the rituals that may have surrounded it, the priests and elders of Gallic tribes, chanting to the gods for protection and victory. The warriors listening intently, each sound vibrating through the air, through their bones, and perhaps even through the helmet itself. The helmet had borne witness to both preparation and celebration, to moments of solemnity and the surge of adrenaline before battle. Close your eyes and picture the forge where it was made, the glowing heat of molten bronze reflecting off the smith's focused eyes. Each strike of the hammer was precise, deliberate, imbued with intention, every curve designed to shield yet honor the wearer. The patterns etched into its surface were not mere decoration but symbols of identity, courage, and connection to the divine. Perhaps it was a mark of rank, or a talisman, or a conduit for spiritual energy, capturing the essence of the tribe's beliefs in the form of bronze. Through centuries of conflict, migration, and cultural transformation, the helmet remained untouched, a silent guardian of memory. It had survived floods, fires, and the relentless passage of time, carrying within it the resilience of those who once wore it. Imagine it buried beneath layers of soil, absorbing the whispers of the land, the footsteps of generations, the murmur of wildlife and wind, until it was finally uncovered, its history waiting patiently to be rediscovered. As you envision it now, consider the emotions it has absorbed, the tension of battle, the courage of the young warriors, the pride of a tribe, the grief of loss, the quiet of victory. It listened in silence, and in doing so became more than metal. It became memory, history, and testimony. The helmet is a bridge, linking us to people who lived, loved, and fought in ways that are both alien and familiar, reminding us that the past is never truly gone. Even today, scholars, historians, and visitors stand in awe before it, imagining the hands that crafted it, the warriors who wore it, and the songs that resonated around it. Every scratch, every dent, every curve speaks of life lived fully and fiercely. It tells of a world that no longer exists, yet its story endures, offering a meditation on courage, artistry, and the silent endurance of human spirit. And as you hold this image in your mind, feel a calm sweep over you, the steady weight of time, the continuity of human experience, and the quiet strength of a helmet that has heard war songs, prayers, and the pulse of life itself. In its silence there is wisdom, in its stillness there is life, and in its bronze there is the echo of humanity that continues to speak to us, inviting reflection, awe, and the gentle hum of connection across millennia. The story that stones wove. Imagine stepping into a grand Roman villa in ancient Antioch, the city alive with the hum of daily life, the streets bustling with merchants, children laughing, and the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy aroma of clay and stone. As you enter, your gaze falls immediately to the floor, where a magnificent mosaic stretches beneath your feet, a vast tapestry of tiny, meticulously placed stones that together tell a story of human experience, myth, and the world as understood by the people who lived thousands of years ago. Each tessera, small and seemingly ordinary, is a fragment of a narrative frozen in time, chosen for color, shape, and placement, forming images that speak to the culture, beliefs, and daily life of a civilization that valued art, storytelling, and permanence. You can almost imagine the artisans, their hands steady and eyes keen, bending over their work for hours, days, perhaps months, carefully positioning each stone, their minds fully immersed in creating a visual story that would endure for centuries. The mosaic is more than decoration, it is an intricate narrative, a silent chronicle of life in Antioch where myth and reality intertwined. Lions stride across the floor, captured mid-step, their muscles tense, their eyes attentive, symbols of power and protection. Gazelles leap gracefully, their bodies in motion, representing both elegance and freedom. Human figures appear engaged in banquets, ceremonies, and daily chores, their garments detailed with remarkable precision, each fold of fabric and gesture of the hand reflecting the skill and observation of the artists. There are also divine figures, gods and goddesses, whose presence reminds visitors of the spiritual beliefs and rituals that guided everyday life, embodying ideals of justice, fertility, strength, and wisdom. As you imagine walking carefully across the mosaic, feeling the texture beneath your sandals, you sense the intention in every placement, the way light interacts with the stones at different times of day, highlighting patterns, creating depth, shadows, and the illusion of movement despite the static nature of the medium. The border designs, repeating geometric patterns, and symbolic animals are more than ornamental. They are a language of motifs, conveying messages of protection, prosperity, and continuity, speaking to both the eye and the mind of anyone who encountered them. Centuries passed, and the villa and its mosaic endured earthquakes, invasions, and periods of abandonment. Buried beneath layers of soil, debris, and rubble, it lay hidden from the world, patiently preserving its stories until archaeologists and historians painstakingly uncovered it. The excavation revealed not only the mosaic's beauty, but also a portal into the past, a connection to the lives, thoughts, and dreams of people long gone. You can imagine the quiet thrill of discovery as researchers brushed away centuries of dust, revealing lions frozen mid-stride, humans engaged in long-ago feasts, and mythical creatures guarding their scenes, each tessera a whisper from the past. The mosaic's durability is a testament to Roman craftsmanship, where knowledge of geometry, color, materials, and spatial composition combined to produce art that was both functional and profoundly expressive. Even now, standing above it in a museum or at the excavation site, you feel the pulse of life that once animated the villa. Footsteps echoing in marble halls, conversation and music drifting through open windows, the laughter of children, the reverent hush of those attending religious rituals, all preserved in the careful arrangement of stone. Scholars have spent decades studying the imagery, deciphering its iconography, and understanding its cultural and historical context. Every lion, gazelle, human figure, and deity holds meaning, reflecting beliefs, social hierarchies, and the values of a civilization that sought to immortalize itself through art. Yet even for the casual observer, there is an undeniable beauty, a quiet majesty, a sense of connection across time. The mosaic reminds us that art is not only for the present moment, but for generations to come, that the desire to communicate, to tell stories, and to preserve memory is deeply human. You can almost hear the soft scrape of tools against stone as artisans worked, the occasional instruction from a master, the apprentice learning placement and proportion, all contributing to a work that transcends the lives of those who made it. The mosaic is alive with movement, despite being fixed in stone. The lion's muscles appear to ripple, the human's gestures convey emotion and intent, the animals seem to breathe and leap, and the deity's eyes seem to follow you as you move, silently narrating their stories. It is a bridge across millennia, a reminder that those who came before us had the same desires to express, to record, and to honor their world. The Antiquia mosaic is also a meditation on impermanence and endurance, surviving natural disasters, political upheaval, and the slow erosion of time, yet still telling its story with clarity and grace. Each tessera represents patience, attention to detail, and the belief that beauty and meaning should be preserved. As you mentally walk across it, step by step, tracing the outlines of figures, animals, and patterns, you sense the rhythm and flow of the narrative, the deliberate placement that guides the eye from one scene to another, weaving stories of daily life, myth, and aspiration. The mosaic's power lies not only in its craftsmanship, but in its ability to connect viewers to the lives of people who lived thousands of years ago, to evoke empathy, imagination, and reverence for human creativity. Imagine a child long ago walking across the same floor, perhaps leaving a small footprint in a soft corner before the mosaic hardened, or a servant pausing to admire the skill of the artisans, or the villa's owner hosting a grand feast while watching guests marvel at the floor beneath them. The mosaic carries echoes of all these moments, preserving them silently, waiting for modern eyes to recognize their stories. Even now, as sunlight glances off the stone, shadows shift, highlighting details that may have been overlooked for centuries, reminding us that art is not static, but interacts with time, light, and observation. The intricate geometric borders, animal motifs, and depictions of human activity all coalesce into a single, flowing narrative that transcends individual stories, giving a sense of the entire society's culture, priorities, and values. Every visitor who stands above it, whether a scholar, a tourist, or a dreamer, becomes part of that ongoing story, stepping into the narrative, feeling the weight of history, and participating in a dialogue that stretches across thousands of years. The mosaic encourages reflection on permanence, mortality, and the human urge to create, record, and communicate. It demonstrates that even small, seemingly mundane pieces of stone can combine to form something extraordinary, a story that survives time itself. The Antakya mosaic is more than an artifact. It is a meditation, a testament, and a bridge. It invites viewers to slow down, observe, imagine, and feel the lives of those who walked before us, to sense their hopes, their joys, their rituals, and their stories, all encoded in stone with meticulous care. And as you imagine yourself stepping carefully across its surface, tracing the contours of lions, humans, and mythological figures, listening to the whispers of centuries, you are part of a long chain of observers, each connected by wonder, curiosity, and the quiet reverence inspired by the beauty and endurance of this extraordinary creation. The mosaic speaks in silence, yet its story is vast, intricate, and profoundly human, reminding us that even in stone, life, memory, and art can endure forever, waiting for us to notice, to connect, and to marvel. As you continue to trace the mosaic in your mind, allow yourself to notice the subtleties that might escape a casual glance. The way the colors of the tesserae shift, from deep reds and earthy browns to soft whites and muted blues, reflects a sophisticated understanding of hue, contrast, and light. The artisans were not merely arranging stones, they were painting with permanence, understanding how the sun and flickering torchlight would play upon the floor, bringing figures and patterns to life. The mosaic becomes a living chronicle, each scene a frozen fragment of movement, each animal mid-leap, each human caught in a gesture that tells of their place in society, their roles, their stories. Imagine the bustling life that once surrounded it, a city of commerce and culture, Antioch, a place where ideas flowed as freely as the water in its aqueducts, where trade connected distant lands, and where the people, much like us, sought beauty, expression, and meaning in the objects they created. The mosaic, in this context, is a mirror of civilization itself, complex, layered, intentional, and enduring. You can almost hear the low hum of conversation, the clinking of coins exchanged in markets, the soft footsteps on marble floors, all overlaid with the quiet rhythm of life, the seasons changing, and the city thriving. And yet, the mosaic also tells quieter, subtler stories. The personal touches, the small errors or improvisations in placement that hint at human hands behind perfection, the choices of motifs that reveal personal or familial symbolism, the subtle narrative decisions that communicated messages both public and private. Archaeologists and art historians study these details meticulously, decoding the intentions and meanings embedded within the stones. Yet there remains an ineffable quality, a whisper from the past that defies full explanation. The lions, steadfast and regal, remind us of protection and authority, guarding the household and the ideals of strength and courage. The gazelles, fleet and graceful, the human figures engaged in banquets, music, and ritual, offer a glimpse into social hierarchy, religious devotion, and everyday existence, bridging the gap between our present understanding and the lived experience of ancient peoples. As centuries passed, the mosaic endured not only because of the skill of its makers, but because it was a work meant to communicate permanence. Buried beneath layers of time, it survived earthquakes, fires, and the ebb and flow of empires. Its rediscovery is akin to opening a door into the past, a silent museum, a storybook whose pages are stone and whose narratives unfold under patient observation. Standing above it, you might feel a sense of reverence, an awareness that you are witnessing not just art but memory itself, a chronicle of human ambition, creativity, and the desire to leave a mark upon the world. Consider the hands that shaped it. Skilled artisans, perhaps part of a workshop, following designs passed down through generations or invented anew, guided by geometry, proportion, and a deep understanding of both form and function. Every stone placed was a decision, a communication of knowledge, skill, and narrative. Their labor has transcended time, a message sent across millennia to anyone willing to look, to imagine, and to listen. Beyond the human and animal figures, the mosaic is rich in symbolism. Geometric patterns, borders, and repetitive motifs reflect mathematical understanding, aesthetic sensibilities, and cultural beliefs. They act as visual punctuation, framing stories, guiding the eye, and reinforcing meanings, much like sentences and paragraphs in a written text. Imagine the artisans stepping back, evaluating their work, adjusting the angles and placements, ensuring that the story flows, that no detail is misplaced, that the viewer's gaze is guided along paths of narrative clarity. This care and foresight allowed the mosaic to remain legible, even after thousands of years. As you mentally wander through the mosaic, consider the philosophical implications, that a civilization can communicate across time, that an artist's hand can speak to strangers centuries later, that the desire to record, to honor, and to beautify is a timeless human impulse. Each tessera is a voice in a chorus of history, each arrangement a sentence, each scene a chapter in a book that continues to unfold as long as we look. The mosaic also reminds us of the fragility of human life and the endurance of our creations. People who once walked across it, laughed over banquets, prayed to gods, and lived ordinary and extraordinary lives, are gone, yet their stories, embedded in stone, endure. It is a humbling thought, to recognize that while individuals fade, the art they leave behind can outlast generations, preserving knowledge, culture, and beauty. Modern conservation efforts continue to protect the mosaic, ensuring that light, moisture, and human presence do not diminish the narrative crafted so carefully. It is a living lesson in stewardship, a reminder that the stories of the past require attention and care if they are to be passed forward. Standing above the mosaic today, we are connected to the people who first placed each stone, sharing a moment of human continuity that stretches across time and space. As your imagination drifts through the vivid scenes, the lions, the humans, the gods, the animals, you are participating in a dialogue that began thousands of years ago. The Antakya mosaic is not only a record of a city, a culture, and its people, but also a mirror reflecting our own curiosity, creativity, and capacity to connect across time. And in that reflection there is a quiet magic, the realization that through art, through careful placement of color and form, through attention, skill, and storytelling, humanity speaks to itself, across generations, reminding us that we are part of an ongoing story, that the past is never truly gone, and that the beauty and meaning we create can endure far beyond our lifetimes. The mosaic whispers to us, inviting observation, contemplation, and imagination. It invites us to slow down, to notice the details, to consider the lives and intentions of the artisans, the society they depicted, and the values they sought to communicate. Every glance reveals something new, a gesture, a pattern, a moment of life captured in stone. The Antakya mosaic is a silent teacher, a storyteller, and a witness, bridging millennia and reminding us that art is not merely decorative, but profoundly communicative, preserving culture, memory, and the essence of human experience. And as you close your eyes, picturing the mosaic beneath your feet, the stories embedded in every stone, the whisper of centuries guiding your thoughts, you are carrying forward a connection that began thousands of years ago, allowing the past to live within you, to speak through you, and to continue its silent, eternal narrative of life, art, and human endeavor. The words that crossed centuries. Imagine for a moment the chill of a northern Roman frontier, the winds cutting across the hills of Britannia, where soldiers in leather and iron stand watch along the wooden palisades of Vindolanda. The air is damp and heavy, carrying the smell of wood smoke, mud, and the distant sea. Life here is rigorous, ordered, and yet, in these rigid routines, the human heart seeks expression, and it is in this seemingly remote corner of the empire that messages, words, and lives were etched onto thin slices of wood, known to us now as the Vindolanda tablets. These wooden tablets, delicate yet enduring, are windows into the everyday experiences of people who lived almost 2 millennia ago. They are not grand monuments or royal decrees, but letters, lists, invitations, and personal notes, intimate glimpses into lives otherwise lost to history. Each line carved or pressed into these tablets carries the weight of human presence, a thought, a concern, a moment of connection across space and time. As we begin to explore these artifacts, consider the circumstances of their creation. Roman Britain was a land of both military necessity and cultural convergence. Soldiers from distant provinces, administrators, merchants, and their families populated these forts and settlements, bringing with them languages, customs, and personal desires. The tablets reflect this intricate web of interactions. There are requests for supplies. Send more wine, one soldier writes. Invitations to social gatherings. Come for dinner tomorrow, and bring your wife. Notices of births, deaths, and absences. Casual greetings and complaints about the weather. Simple words of longing and friendship. They are fragments of ordinary lives, yet extraordinary in the way they survived. Consider the tactile reality of these tablets. Thin wooden boards, often folded and sealed, marked with ink or stylus impressions. The ink, made from soot and gum, has faded, but traces remain, and the impressions of handwriting, the curves of letters, and even corrections reveal personality and intention. One can almost feel the fingers of the writer, the pressure applied to the stylus, the rhythm of writing interrupted by the bustling life around the fort. Life at Vindolanda was structured yet dynamic. Soldiers trained, patrols marched, and the fort maintained its vital role in the Roman defensive network. But behind the military routines, life pulsed with domesticity, commerce, and communication. The tablets provide evidence of organized supply chains, lists of footwear, clothing, and armor, and the meticulous attention to administrative detail. They reveal that life was not merely survival, but a complex balance of duty, community, and personal connection. Among the tablets, we find letters that touch the heart with their simplicity and humanity. One woman writes to her sister describing a newborn, expressing joy and concern simultaneously. A soldier writes to his commander, requesting leave to attend a family matter, revealing both his obedience and his personal commitments. The interplay of official and private voices creates a vivid, layered understanding of the human experience at Vindolanda. Beyond the content, the tablets are remarkable for their preservation. Buried in anaerobic soil, shielded from oxygen and decay, the wood remained intact for centuries. Archaeologists, when uncovering these artifacts, were astonished by the level of detail and the intimacy conveyed through simple lines on wood. Each tablet is a conversation across time, a reminder that people centuries ago were not so different from ourselves. They worried, they planned, they celebrated, and they missed those absent from their daily lives. As we examine specific examples, the richness of these communications becomes clear. A soldier writes about the need for new sandals, and in doing so, we glimpse both the logistics of military life and the physical hardships endured. Another tablet notes a social gathering, complete with names, dishes, and expectations, allowing us to imagine the laughter, chatter, and camaraderie shared within the wooden walls of the fort. There are even glimpses of humor, subtle teasing between friends, and playful complaints, reminding us that the human spirit, in all its joy and frustration, has always sought expression. Beyond their personal content, the Vindolanda tablets offer unparalleled insight into literacy and language in Roman Britain. They demonstrate that writing was not limited to the elite. Soldiers, administrators, and women were all active participants in this written culture. The style, vocabulary, and format of the tablets reveal education, social hierarchy, and the transmission of ideas. Some tablets are formal, carefully composed for official purposes, while others are informal, spontaneous, capturing the immediacy of thought and feeling. They also provide linguistic treasures, showing the interplay of Latin with local dialects, the emergence of shorthand, and the adaptation of writing techniques for practical purposes. In this, the tablets are not only artifacts but also teachers, showing us how communication evolved, how language functioned in daily life, and how people navigated the intersection of official duty and personal expression. Imagine, too, the physical context in which these letters were written. A soldier sits at a wooden table, in the glow of a flickering oil lamp, quill in hand, inkpot beside him, scratches forming letters on the smooth surface of a carefully prepared board. Outside, the wind whistles across the fortifications. Thank you for exploring these incredible artifacts with us. If you enjoyed uncovering history's secrets, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Stay curious, and join us next time as we reveal more hidden stories from the past.